Sergio Perez appears to be leaving the Red Bull squad following the season finale in Abu Dhabi, and it appears like Perez is taking the initiative to say farewell and transfer to an ambassador role in 2025 instead of being kicked out. At least that will be the story we'll all be sold. And this time, it looks for real. As even team boss Christian Horner has stated that Sergio Perez is old enough and wise enough to know what the situation is, as Red Bull prepares to break the partnership after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The Mexican will finish only 8th in the drivers' standings, despite teammate Max Verstappen winning his 4th title, with Perez's shortcomings largely to blame for the team's inability to keep McLaren and Ferrari at bay. It is anticipated that Red Bull's owners will meet on Monday following the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix to finalize the team's driver lineup for 2025. And, while the organization has said nothing about Perez's future, it is anticipated that he will be replaced next year by one of the current running backs. What remains to be resolved is the conditions of their partnership's termination, as he initially signed a contract, although with break clauses, until next year. In terms of potential replacements, Liam Lawson remains favourite to be given the nod, but Yuki Tsunoda could yet get himself in the frame if he impresses in a Red Bull test he has in Abu Dhabi on the Tuesday after the season finale. Helmut Marko, Red Bull's racing advisor, said last Sunday that things will be clear next week. "There is a meeting Monday after Abu Dhabi," he said. "All the major people are there, all of the shareholders, and there a decision will be done. We always, or most of the time, brought our own drivers through the Red Bull program, and I think it's a philosophical decision. Do we stick to that? And what I got from the shareholders is it will be in this direction." After a string of disappointing qualifying results, Perez faced another difficult weekend at the Qatar Grand Prix, failing to qualify for SQ2 on Friday, and squandering his pit lane start by failing to acknowledge the green light in the sprint race. Perez, who had been running in the points in the Grand Prix, spun behind the safety car before coming to a halt, thus ending his day without points once again. The problem that caused him to finish the race? Horner replied, "We're just investigating the exact failure, but it looks like, obviously he spun the car, and as he dropped the clutch had too much temperature go through it. So yes, one of those things. But, more to come after we've stripped the car." Pointing to his errors across the weekend, Horner added, "We sent him to the end of the pit lane 7 minutes ahead of Colapinto for a reason. But look, Checo's contributed a huge amount to this team in the 4 years that he's been here. The World Championship that Max achieved in 2021, the Constructors' World Championships in 2022 and 2023, and obviously this year, has been particularly hard. He's won 5 Grand Prix for us, and he's had some outstanding performances in races like Singapore, Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, to name a few. So everybody holds Checo in the highest of regard and respect. But, obviously, the situation that we're in is as painful for him as it is for the team. With it looking increasingly likely that Red Bull will break its partnership with Perez at the end of the season following this weekend's finale at Yas Marina, Horner added, "Checo has had a very tough year, and obviously the points, the tables are what they are. We're very much focused on really supporting him to the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi. It's not an enjoyable situation for Checo being in this position with speculation every week. He's old enough and wise enough to know what the situation is, and let's see where we are after Abu Dhabi." Perez's performances look to have spiraled even deeper in recent times, to the point that Christian Horner's year-long defense has come to an end, and the Mexican driver now confronts the door following the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. After all, Red Bull's drop to 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship has lost the team considerable financial benefits in terms of prize money and marketing value for 2025, as well as having a direct impact on rank-and-file staff, whose annual incentives are determined by the team's final ranking. "We have to have 2 drivers who finish in the points," Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko said. "Max is more than 200 points ahead of Sergio in the driver standings. For our employees, it is a disappointment because they will not receive their bonuses as they depend on our position in the Constructors' Championship." Perez has suffered a long, drawn-out decline. Endless videos and articles have been dedicated to Red Bull driver uncertainty this season, with Ricciardo moving from a near-certain promotion to the main squad to a relegation from the sister team in a matter of weeks as the situation shifted swiftly. Liam Lawson, the highly rated Kiwi driver who made such an impact during his brief spell as a substitute in 2023, may have just missed out on a drive this year, but his presence was never far away as he lurked, shark-like, in the V-carb garage, waiting for his chance. Eventually, that moment came as Lawson was slotted in place of Ricciardo for the final 6 races, a short and sweet audition to see whether the Kiwi driver can handle the pressure of such an intense few weeks on stage. While outcomes will undoubtedly play a role in judging this audition, the assessment is more than just point scoring. Yuki Tsunoda is a known amount of speed, both on a single lap and at race pace, providing a clear bar for Lawson to compete against. However, the review will also determine if Lawson is the appropriate material for Red Bull. Red Bull despises anonymity more than anything else. A forgettable driver is a driver of limited worth, and Lawson exemplifies the fierce passion and self-belief that Red Bull craves. Lawson has made errors, and his hot-headed outburst at stablemate Perez did not go well, but the Kiwi driver made a point of hanging around to see Horner after the race and media sessions to put his hand up. Following his accident with Valtteri Bottas in Qatar, Lawson made a beeline for the Finn to apologise profusely for his blunder, saying that he purposefully turned his car to avoid hitting the Sauber driver harder than he did. In such a critical period in Lawson's career, it would be easy for such an inexperienced mind to be hesitant to show any signs of weakness, but Lawson's willingness to admit mea culpa demonstrates clear mental strength and self-belief, knowing that his every move is being closely scrutinised by Red Bull's management. Perez is unlikely to be in a Red Bull racing cockpit in 2025, barring a miraculous reversal in Abu Dhabi. If he accepts the offer, the Mexican will be given an ambassadorial post with the group. The implications around the team are that Perez needs to recognise he needs to leave on his own terms before the choice is made for him, with the focus shifting to who will replace him once the cockpit is opened up. Heading into the Abu Dhabi weekend, Lawson seems to be the leading frontrunner. Tsunoda, who had been ruled out of contention for much of the year, has joined the mix as a contender. He's proven tough to ignore after a spate of excellent results, providing 30 of V-carb's 46 points and keeping them in contention for 6th place in the Constructors' Championship. However, there are several other factors to consider. Despite his expertise, Tsunoda still has some rough edges, as seen by the occasional dumb error or accident, as well as a lack of composure in high-pressure circumstances. His unnecessary moment of temper-fueled rage on the cooldown lap in Bahrain demonstrated that this red mist hasn't completely vanished. While it's easier to keep such a temper in check when in a more comfortable leading position at a team, how would Tsunoda handle being paired up with Verstappen, who is likely to be ahead more often than not? Tsunoda's background is also more Honda-aligned than Red Bull, though this isn't necessarily a barrier if Honda and Red Bull part ways. Honda has shown a readiness to become a personal sponsor of the Japanese driver if he ends up with a team that doesn't utilize Honda power. However, Lawson has an advantage because he has worked closely with Red Bull for the previous 6 years. Highly regarded within the ranks, the fact that he is mentioned in the same breath as Tsunoda, a driver with just under 4 years of additional F1 experience, suggests a higher performance ceiling as he transitions into the sport full-time, whereas Tsunoda should be close to reaching his full potential after those 4 years. There's also the possibility that, if Tsunoda's elevation is made with the short term in mind, he'll adopt a more selfish attitude to next season. It's in his best interest to look after his own corner in order to secure his future. Lawson, who appears to have a more secure long-term future with Red Bull if he maintains his current level of performance, is far more likely to be willing to play in a Verstappen supporting role for a year or two, allowing him to find his feet without feeling the need to fight his teammate unnecessarily. Assuming Lawson joins Red Bull and Tsunoda remains with VCARB, French driver Isaac Hadjar is expected to take over the second car. What your take on that? Do you think Perez will accept the offer and step down? And will Red Bull choose Lawson or Tsunoda? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.